next one comes from Anxiously Chrono Triggered. It says, "Hey gentlemen, what was the first game you saw and thought, oh lord, this could not get any better than that? For me, it was when I saw Tekken 2 on the original PlayStation. I couldn't believe my eyes how good it looked." This is a fun one, I think, right?
Wow.
For me, I'll start with, so obviously one of the first times that happened was Daytona USA in the arcade. That was just insane seeing that at 60 FPS. But then it happened again when I got Unreal on the PC. I think I've mentioned this before. When I saw that waterfall on the first level after you get out of the ship, I like went and got my family together on my PC, and I was like, I'm moved to tears here. Look at this. Nothing will ever be. This is the best thing I've ever seen. That was, and then just 3 years later, I had a similar like holy moly type of experience with Metal Gear Solid 2, which just seeing that moving with the rain was unbelievable at the time. And I think the fact that it still looks as good as it does today really highlights that they were just super, like their art direction and the way they utilized everything to make that game look the way it does was exceptional for the time. So, gentlemen, Alex.
This is get better than this. This is hard because at some point in time I had to realizing like, oh wait, there's offline rendered graphics, so like it can get better than this. You know what I mean? Like there was at one point in time, I think it was when the first Quake ray tracing thing started happening. You could run like Quake ray traced on your CPU at like 1 FPS. Yeah, that's when I realized like, oh wait, we can do all this stuff that I never even thought about before. Yep. But before then, I definitely remember when I saw Halo Combat Evolved and I saw both the grass texture on Blood Gulch and also that you could like look at a Marine's face and you could see like the text moving down his face, or you could like look at the assault rifle and see like the ammo counter even in like third person models going down. I was just like, how are they doing this?
What about
I can't even imagine this.
The bump maps in the Covenant ship.
The bump maps in the Covenant ship.
You know that purple texture with like the repeating pattern where you look at it, it's like super detailed looking.
Yeah, also like the invisibility. The invisibility I thought looked ridiculous. I just remember looking at the water in that game thinking it looked ridiculous. Obviously now Halo 1, like just like 2 years later, you'd be like, well, those are some pretty blocky models, right?
I gotta say that I think Halo 1 looks better than Halo 2.
Halo 1 does look better than Halo 2. Yeah. But like that was a time where I really remember being like, oh, how in the hell are they doing this? It's obvious now. But I think the time after that, I've talked about Doom 3 before on the channel, but even then, since it was John Carmack, I knew he could do better. But when Crysis was initially showed off, not initially 2005 EXO, whatever, with the pre-rendered trailer, but when they showed like it was like CryEngine 2 demos of showing like the face and like CryEngine making you clear in quality games as the character who would eventually become Prophet is, I think, no, it was actually Jester walking around with a different voice. Like that's when I was just like, holy crap, this looks like a game from like 5-10 years in the future. And that was sure a moment where I couldn't imagine games looking better for the foreseeable future at all, for sure.
Yeah.
Oliver, as the youngest of the three of us.
Yeah, a little younger than Alex. I think for me, probably the game that really stood out to me was in 2005. I played Half-Life 2 on the PC for the first time, on a good PC too, with an 6800 GT and an Athlon 3800 Plus. So it was like a good experience. And that opening cutscene with the G-Man, Rise and Shine, Mr. Freeman, you know, that whole sequence, that just blew me away. The quality of the facial rendering, the lip sync, everything like that, it just really showed me something that I felt like I couldn't have in any other title. Also, of course, Doom 3, although I played that a few months later. That was also a big game for me. But probably the biggest one, the one that really stands out as being the most impactful, although I don't think it's held up quite as well today, is Gears of War, the original Gears of War.
I almost said that, actually.
Yeah. It was a sort of game that just in terms of the detail, in terms of the particle effects, in terms of what they were showing off, it just, when I looked at it, it was hard for me to contemplate something that looked better in real time at the time. It just
Isn't that
felt
nuts?
Like
I know.
Yeah,
because now you look at it and it's like actually scales worse than a lot of the.
No, I look at it and it's like the lighting is crap. And
But I'm pretty sure the first time I saw like the chainsaw execution, I like probably wet myself. Like that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Looking. The first time you saw the
Yeah, in
chainsaw
retrospect,
execution.
it's silly.
Yeah.
But also part of that was about some pre-release controversy where they were running the game like a lot of 360 titles. They're running the game on PowerPC Max, right?
Right, I remember that.
They were demoing it on PowerPC Max with AMD graphics hardware. And they were
Right.
saying, "Oh, we can get this up. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll look great on 360." And I'm like, "Yeah, right."
ran bad on
I've
this.
just played like Oblivion on this thing. It can't render that. I've seen the grass textures in Oblivion. It can't render that. And then a few months later, for them to actually release it and it looking as good or better than I thought. I mean, that was such a
Yeah, it ran
revelation for
really,
me. It
really
was-
poorly in those.
all my friends in 2006 sitting around my like 40-inch Sony Bravia LCD, one of the worst televisions probably, that you could imagine nowadays. Everyone was completely blown away. It was just mind blowing. But yeah, that was a special game for sure.
Wow, that's a good shout. For me, I specifically remember the second area of the game when you're in that area with all the buildings, sort of that with the intricate architecture and that sort of like you can sort of get a look at the ruined city, and then when the Krill first show up and like it's sundown, they're swarming in the sky. I was just like, wow, this is unbelievable. It truly felt like a next gen leap at the time. There's something I would like. That art style, it's very Unreal Engine 3, right? That's the look that we would get with UE3, but I think it would be fun to see that with like some SGSSAA or something if that were possible.
Yeah.
Or like really good anti-aliasing and super sampling.
There is a way with the OG PC version to do that, actually.
Oh man.
I've never tried it in a long time.
I'm
I
gonna
know
have to look
there's a
into
way to
that.
force it. Yeah.
I think part of it as well was that we weren't so used to that UE3 style yet. This was like the first.
It was
game
the
to really
first,
show
and it
that.
was cool at the
It
time.
was the first. And like all those like detailed textures and the kind of glossiness of it and that super futuristic look, it just looked so interesting and appealing and unlike anything I'd ever seen before at that point, really.
But then
And then subsequently, it became a very boring style, right?
that generation
Yeah.
in general had a lot of problems
Yeah.
with that, and I would argue that in the end I would look back towards older games that relied on things like pre-calculated light maps and be like, you know what, this holds up better.
Yeah.
Right?
Gears is such
Yeah.
an interesting. It's like one of the few ones
It hasn't
where,
aged that well.
No,
It is, yeah,
it
it's-
really has not.
and there's all these like anecdotal things like they shipped the game with like a ridiculously old Lancer model. Like if you look at like the Lancer model in third person that Marcus Phoenix or any of the Gears use, it looks like something straight out of like UT2K4 actually. And if you compare it to like the Gears 2 Lancer model, it's like so much better. And I don't know. I do have a fondness for Gears for looking incredible when it released, but it's like one of the worst aging ones we mentioned here, which is odd. Because
Gears 3 still holds up wonderfully.
It does.
with lots of hardware.
That's the one that holds up. Yeah, that one. God, that Gears collection better be real because I would like to see that in like full res, full frame rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? One other one, while I'm thinking about it, from that exact era that impressed me a lot at the time, weirdly enough, it's Trackmania Sunrise. This was the first game I ever saw modern per pixel motion blur used in. And it looked unreal. Like I genuinely didn't understand how it was done at the time. I was like, what is going on here? Like this motion blur effect is unlike anything we'd ever seen in a game before. And it looked awesome. And not to mention that game was great. Only issue is that it's locked down by Star Force, which was a horrible DRM of that era. So yeah. But okay, those are some good answers, and I agree with all of them. That's really cool, man.